Yeah, and it's really important, Will, because sometimes, I mean, sometimes not, because we lacked information, no doubt about it, because we didn't have the proof in our hands. We spent several months here saying, is what the Americans are asking for too much? We knew it was too much, but what is too much? Now, there's concrete proof, 3 pages long. This one here is 3 pages, a list of demands. And this list of demands isn't a conspiracy theory. It's what the Americans asked of Brazil. So there wouldn't be a tariff, a complete tariff hike. Some tariff was going to come, so it's not everything. I insist for the worker in a factory who would be affected, for the autonomy of Brazilian foreign policy, for the sovereignty of Brazil. Regarding digital platforms, all of this would be threatened because of a proposal like this. And it's very interesting because the American government, in this letter, among other things, he says the following: look, the proposal you Brazilians made didn't please us. We were very disappointed. But if you want to make us happy, basically, I won't put it that way, but if you want to make us happy, here's the script to follow. This script, folks, is pure sellout. In my 26 years covering trade, I've never seen a negotiation where one side unconditionally opens up its market. Just imagine, 0 tariffs for all American industrial goods. Level playing field for digital services and consultation before American companies. Guys, what else? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. A step above that is Venezuela. That's it.
That's what I was going to say. It's becoming Venezuela without needing to kidnap the president, right? It's voluntarily becoming Venezuela. Now, Jamil, 2 things that I found interesting. Yeah. One, the Brazilian government has been saying all along that in all the negotiations over the past year, there was no clarity from the United States about what they wanted. But what they wanted in a reasonable way, now I'm starting to understand, because they don't even consider that letter as something that can be discussed, right? And that letter.
Jamil,
thank you so much for bringing it up, because Brazil needs to know this story. This needs to be shown to all of Brazil so everyone can understand what was at stake and why the Brazilian government acted as firmly as it did. And the other key point is this story about China, right, Jamil? Because it's a concentrated effort to stop China's trade with Latin America, and China is by far our main trading partner today.
Exactly. And hello, I actually did it with that in mind, so Brazil could read this letter. In my column at ICL, I publish it in full. So what you find there are not my words, it's the letter written by Jameson Greer. I insist. I've been covering trade for 26 years. The WTO is right down here, just so you have an idea. Yeah, and usually those proposals, when we manage to get access to any of them, they're much more subtle, they're much more delicate, they're much more reciprocal, in the sense of, look, we can do this if you do that, we can negotiate this if you make some kind of contribution in this other area, and so on, all right? Now, that wasn't a negotiation letter, and that's why the point you mentioned was very important. It's what in diplomacy is called a non-starter. In other words, you can't start from there. You can't just take that and say, great, this is the basis of our negotiation. Let's then discuss it point by point. No, there wasn't a single point there that we could discuss in any way. Another point. Opening the Brazilian market to American cars. Opening ELO. So you look at it, is it opening or just a small reduction in taxes? No, opening. So it's very shocking because this is the Donald Trump administration bullying, violent, obviously in terms of negotiation, and expecting the other side to give in. What always draws attention, and this happens in every country historically, it has always happened, is that you always find an accomplice. You can always somehow co-opt a faction basically from that country where you want to have all this influence to say, I'll be the main beneficiary of all this. In exchange for supporting Flavio Bolsonaro's election, if Flavio Bolsonaro were to implement all this, we now understand. Flavio Bolsonaro would be handing over Brazil in exchange for Donald Trump's support for his own election.
That's crazy.
Support from the most hated guy in the world. Just a quick thing, Jamil, I don't know if you've had time for this, but journalists from other countries, have you managed to show this to anyone yet and discuss how absurd this is? Maybe it's too soon, so no?
I actually did. I actually sent it to several Brazilian and foreign ambassadors. What caught my attention is that many Brazilian ambassadors around the world were shocked. In other words, the Brazilian diplomats themselves around the world, who of course are not involved in this negotiation, didn't know the extent of what was being demanded from Brazil. Naturally, the ambassadors weren't negotiating this confidential matter. They are learning from the ICL exactly how the negotiation was happening. I'm in touch with these ambassadors. Now, others told me the following, that some of these points are very similar to what the American government demanded from Indonesia and Malaysia. In those cases, there was also tremendous pressure against those two countries, but there's also a geopolitical issue there. The American government wants Indonesia and Malaysia to join precisely to create a kind of containment against China. So there's a very particular story there. Indonesia decided to get on board with Donald Trump, even joining the Peace Council in that science fiction thing they created about gas, etc. So yes, there are other parameters. Yes, there is a kind of manual. Look, we go around the world demanding things. Of course, in this case, it's also very specific to Brazil. There are some very Brazilian items, but that's how it goes. I add one, take out another, etc. So it's something similar to what exists with other developing countries. That's why the whole world is watching Brazil, to see how Brazil will react to all of this. So it's very important, I insist, this letter that the ICL has published, it's very important because it's very revealing of many things that are happening in the world today, even outside of Brazil.
Well, I'll take this opportunity, so thank you very much. And I invite our audience to go to inserinoticias.com.br to read the details of this letter and also to share it. Thank you. It's really good for everyone to know what the American interests are, right? All supported by the presidential candidate who, after all, is there, allied with those who want to take over our country. Take over our country, right? Practically turning us into another Argentina. Right, Jamil, it's all very sad, but we're keeping an eye on it, and thank you very much. I'm going to invite our audience once again to take a look at our website, inserinoticias.com.br. Check out Jamil's column there and share it. Everyone needs to know about this. Kisses to you, Jamil.
Have a great weekend, everyone. And of course, now that the World Cup is ending, let's get back to what matters, which is the Brazilian Championship. Hugs to all. My God.
With
The
Botafogo winning the very first game.
Roberta joked we were becoming another Argentina, but without the World Cup final. Just the bad part, unfortunately.
No. Leave the World Cup aside.
Kisses to you.
Jamil.
Kisses to everyone. Bye-bye.
Isn't it great? It's freezing in Sao Paulo, and I'm already thinking of Jamil in that warm sunshine.